Here we go. And then we can share this later as necessary. For some of you, I know this is probably the first time you're actually seeing me. You've probably read some things that I've sent out, but this gives you an opportunity to at least put a face to the name, if nothing else. And so I'm Danielle Edmunds, and I'm serving in this interim principal position for the time being. You know, it's been about a month, and the search is underway, and that will likely close. I don't know what the time frame is for that, but I know that the search is underway. So we're moving in that direction, and in the meantime, I'm here and kind of holding the ship afloat. So I wanted to share a few things that have been going on here this month, and some things that we have to look forward to in the upcoming month, as well as kind of address where we are in kind of a national and local context as well, and what we're seeing with students across the county, across the country, and in Brighton, and then what we're doing to support them. And then obviously give you an opportunity to ask questions if you have any. So I'll start off with the celebrations. Just kind of summing up that thanks to the PTSA, we were able to wrap up our last activity night. I think it was the first weekend in November, and they were fantastic. I have been in the district for a really long time, and these were probably the most well-organized activity nights that we've had. So kudos to the PTSA for doing all the organization and the different activities. Lots of smiles that I could see on students' eyes. And they just moved from activity to activity. We played bingo, we played, there were puzzles and games, and obviously ping pong, and there was dancing and basketball, you name it, face painting, photo booth, just a lot of good fun for the students. So that was at the start of November. We were so excited to have our annual Veterans Day assembly this year and to have students be able to see it in person. We had a nice representation from the community, and it's always really well received by our 7th graders, and they do some great debriefing in their 7th grade classes. It also aligns really nicely to what they eventually get to see and talk about when they go to DC and they see all the different memorials. So just a great impactful time that we had last week. I just wanted to highlight some of the unique activities that we have going on in classes, and just a reminder that our activities, our classes at school are not this sit and get for 40 minutes or 41, 42 minutes, but we've got students that are actively engaged in producing products and sharing their celebrations of learning. And this was just one example in Miss Moran's FACS class, where the students actually created their own idea for a food truck, and then researched food and prices and created a menu, created prices, and then they had to give a sales pitch, and lots of adults throughout the building came in and heard their pitches, and then we all had fake money that we were able to put in each of their food trucks based on what we thought of their product and their pitch. And just a sample of what kids are producing every day. So instead of them just sitting and being that empty vessel, they're actually doing the investigations and creating products. And you can see just from these pictures again, there's smiles on all of those faces. They were so proud to show their work off. We have our Black Student Union that has been very active lately, and they are, this is a picture of them creating their rock garden of peace that we have the rocks placed outside in our little atrium area in memorial to one of our TAs who passed away a few years ago. And they're also working on a food drive right now that started for the holiday season. So you'll hear more about that. In our Mosaic Club, we had 2 students who came in and presented all about their Festival of Lights, Diwali, and they shared all sorts of cultural norms around the celebration with their classmates, including traditional garb that they wore. So lots of opportunities to learn about other cultures in school. And just kind of like the rundown of what else is new. As you know, fall sports ended a few weeks ago, which puts us kind of in this limbo as we wait for winter sports to start in the coming week. Marking period 1 came to a close last week, and grades are actually live today on School Tools. So report cards are there for families to take a look at. And obviously we're, now a week into marking period 2. We continue to work on iterations in lunch. The tent that was outside is coming down due to the cold temperatures, so that will come down next week. And you've probably heard that we are seating students in zones. They were able, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, maybe, they were able to pick what zone they wanted to sit in. And so they're able to sit with their friends. They just need to stay within that zone, which is anywhere from a 40 to a 60 desk zone. And that zone rotation is how we're calling students up to the service line, how we are dismissing students at the end. And it was how we were also calling them outside when students were going outside. So that seems to be clearing up the bottleneck on the lunch line, which is nice. And with dismissal, it also gives kids a little bit of leeway in terms of being able to move around each day within a general area, so that for contact tracing purposes, we always know who's in what given area. It also allows us to have, God forbid we ever had an emergency during lunch, students would meet up with their zone leader and outside. So it gives us some safety precautions also. We have moved into the small gym where we have zones 5 and 6. We moved tables in. So students yesterday and today were able to eat at tables, and I think they're really enjoying that again. And again, we're asking that students just stay in their same area. Should we ever need to do anything contact tracing wise, that they're unmasked. So they really should be staying at the same table and not moving around since they are unmasked while they're eating. So that worked really well. And after Thanksgiving, we'll bring tables back into the cafeteria as well. So we'll move away from the desks, and all students will be able to sit at tables still in their same zones, their same areas. And we're getting closer and closer to normalcy, I guess, for lunch. 3 weeks ago, we held what we call quote unquote booster assemblies. We call them booster assemblies because they're just reminders of the norms and expectations at school, and where we go through the basics around, our expectations with integrity and respect and responsibility and self-control and kindness, how we want students to interact with each other, interact with adults, and so forth. We also had this past week, Officer Renee Fisher came in and spoke to all of our students about digital safety and social media. Her focus was on basically what information you are revealing on social media and what people can learn about you based on the different pieces that you're revealing about yourself. So pretty powerful, but short assembly for students. Our goal is to have her come back throughout the year to kind of give tidbits or I should say teasers of information for students to help keep them safe and make good positive decisions in terms of their digital lives. We continue as part of our Brighton Blueprint to work on diversity, equity, and inclusivity. And in the past, what we've had here is kind of a district level DEI team. This year we've zoomed in a little bit, and so each building has its own DEI team. So we've been working with a company in New York, and they're helping to facilitate the work with us. So our TCMS DEI team is made up of teachers, administrators, and parents. We met last month just to start to establish some common knowledge and start thinking about bigger picture things for our building. We meet again next week, I believe on Tuesday, to continue that work. I threw a lot in here, so I apologize, but I wanted to make sure that I share this. Planners, people have been asking about planners. Planners are one of the things like iPads at 3rd grade and in other buildings that have been caught up in the supply chain issue. So basically what we decided is we're just going to create the planners for the rest of the year in-house. They're being created at central office right now. We're hoping to have them out to students after the Thanksgiving break, and they're for the full year. They'll look like a regular planner to the extent that they possibly can here in-house. Pictures went home this week. and retakes are on Monday. So for anybody who did not have a picture taken or who needs to have a retake done, they will be able to do that during lunch, at the end of their lunch period on Monday. We had a phenomenal showing of All Together Now this past weekend. I was so excited to see all of the students that were in it, and how, again, you know, I keep talking about smiling with their eyes. I could see how excited they were to be with each other and how proud they were of the work that they've done. So it was fantastic performance. I was able to go on Saturday night and just really proud of them, the efforts that they put in to make it happen, as well as excited to just see, again, that little bit of normalcy back. Our clubs, we have great numbers this year. I think, again, it's due to COVID, this idea that students feel like they haven't been able to be connected in a lot of ways. So they're taking advantage of the opportunities that are present right now with our clubs and activities. As I walk through the building after school, classrooms are packed, you know, from chess club to the mosaic club to the BSU, you name it. We've got the science club. The classrooms are packed, which is exactly what we want to see. Starting next week, concert season starts. So we're ready to take that on and celebrate all the, again, hard work that students are doing. We're also in continued conversations right now for our plans for the DC trip and the world language trips. With COVID, there are going to be some, at least I know on the world language trips at this point, some requirements around vaccination. And each of the organizers of those trips will share that specific information. So that's up and running. I know our world language trips are having meetings in the upcoming weeks with parents to determine interest and next steps. Snow day plans, this is what none of the students want to hear about, but I did send out an email to students last week and included in my e-news just a reminder that if we were to have a snow day this winter, it would actually be a virtual learning day, and students have links to their teachers' Zooms in all of their Schoology classes, and I shared a schedule with them of the times that they need to report to each period. If Dr. McGowan were to call a snow day, we would do an all call, and we would also email out to students and parents again the schedule, just so people are aware. And then I mentioned also the food drive that we have from November 29th through the 16th. So if you have any canned non-perishable goods that you want to send in that we can share with the Brighton food cupboard, that would be fantastic. So that's kind of the update on the general happenings. And then I just wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit about some things that we're seeing across the country in schools, and definitely in Brighton at each building level as well. And I want to share this idea of liminal spaces. We had a gentleman come in from Webster, a teacher in Webster, and he talked to us a little bit about this term, and I can't seem to get it out of my head in the last few weeks. And I think it's important to share with parents as well. So he talked about this concept of a liminal space. And a liminal space is an architectural term. And a liminal space refers to something that is transitional. So it acts as kind of a transition point between where you were and where you're going. Think of it as a threshold. So when we think about, architecturally speaking, when we think about liminal spaces, a hallway would be a liminal space because you're moving from one classroom to another in that liminal space. You're not where you were, but you're not where you're going. A waiting room where, you know, you're not outside, but you're not quite in seeing the doctor or the professional that you're going to see. Even a garage, you know, a car garage. You're not quite in your destination, but you're not out driving on the road either. So he started by talking about this concept of liminal spaces, architecturally speaking, and then he brought it into, okay, think about, you know, applying that to life and stages of life. So a liminal space in life is still an intermediary point. We talked about, you know, adolescence in general being a liminal space in life, because students they're not kids anymore, but they're not youngsters, but they're not adults either. We talked about pregnancy being a liminal space, right? You're not in that life before you're expecting, but you are also not where you want to be or excited to be in terms of starting your family. We talked about hospice being a liminal space, right? As a transition space. So we talked about college being a liminal space, all these spaces where you're not quite where you were, but you're not quite where you want to end up either. And then the last thing that we talked about was kind of applying this concept of a liminal space to where we are today in November of 2021. We're very much living in a liminal space. Yes, because we're a middle school and it's adolescence, and that by its nature is a liminal space, but also because we are not where we were last year. We're not hybrid, or we're not fully remote. We're here every single day in person, but we're really not back to normal yet either, right? I mean, you can see it just because we're wearing masks. You can see it because we're distanced in the cafeteria. We're just not right back where I think all had hoped we would be at this point. I remember saying last year to teachers, like, just put all of your eggs in September's basket. It's going to be better. We're going to be back to normal and life is going to be good. We all had this sense that life would be good and back to normal when September came, and then it's not, right? So that's kind of what we're all seeing in education right now across the country. And I know you're seeing it too as parents, is that we're not back to normal yet. And we're living kind of in this ambiguous land, which brings with it a lot of ambiguity. And that ambiguity brings on a lot of stress and anxiety, and also brings upon reactions from people that aren't typical reactions. So let me go back for a second. So I bring that up to you because as educators, what we're talking about a lot is when you look at, say, our 8th graders, the last time they were in normal, quote unquote, was in 5th grade. Right? Because their 6th grade year was interrupted. Last year was completely hybrid, and now they're here in what we hoped would be normal. But really, the last time 8th graders were present in a normal school situation was when they were in 5th grade. They missed all of the transition into a normal 6th grade year, and all the expectations in terms of social behaviors, in terms of norms that come with being in a social environment when you're 11 and 12. And now they're 13 and they kind of are trying to fill the gaps. So we're seeing in some regards behaviors from 8th graders that we've not seen before because they missed those few years of social interaction. And of course I can scale that down too, right? We see it at 7th grade, we see it at 6th grade. So what we're finding this fall is that everybody's just trying to figure out how to be again. We're trying to figure out like how to coexist. How do we interact with each other as professionals in the building? How do students interact with each other? Last year, if they were in the building, the largest number of students they ever interacted with or possibly knew were in the building was 290, maybe 296. This year, there are 850 kids in the building, right? So it's a big difference. Last year, they just had to navigate with 1/3 of our students in the building due to the hybrid nature of our schedule. And now they're trying to figure out how to do all of that with 850 kids, 5 days a week. And so are we as adults, right? So I bring that up to just say, you know, it's a different year by everybody's expectations. There is some stress and anxiety, but it's also given us an opportunity to kind of stop, pause, reflect on where the students are, figure out what they need and how we can best move forward. And so where we are is this idea of going back to basics and remembering that, you know, we need to model as adults this idea of Brighton Believes, and we need to, moving forward from here, spend, a considerable amount of time on social emotional learning and helping kids remember but see what it looks like to act with integrity with your peers in different settings in the school. See what it looks like to act with respect with your peers and adults in different settings in the school, and responsibility and kindness and so forth. So that's kind of where we're going, is that we're bringing this kind of back to basics mentality, moving forward to just help students, because we know, bottom line, that if students are feeling like there's ambiguity around them and they're feeling anxious, they're not going to be able to be their best selves. They're not going to be able to be their best learners. They're not going to be able to be their best peers. They're not going to be able to be their best children of their parents and so forth. And again, I keep saying this is what we're doing with kids, but we're also really trying to do this as adults with each other as well. And that's, you know, from professional to professional, as well as professional to parents and community members and so forth. So that's kind of the gist of where we are at this point. I know that, I'll open up and see, Ms. Liebel was going to come and talk with us about what the counseling department is going to do or has been doing in order to support students. And I just don't see her on right now. So what I'll do is open up questions, and give me one moment to mute for a second. I will call her and see if I can get her to hop on. I'll leave these upcoming dates here for you to look at while I try and give her a call. Okay, so she's going to hop on right now. Does anybody want to ask me questions while we're waiting?
Hello, Mrs. Edmunds. No questions, but I just want to say that I really appreciate this, last piece that you share with us. Important thoughts and, in helping us all move forward. So much appreciation.
It is. I appreciate that, Amanda. I read something by a teacher from Chicago the other day, and he kind of reiterated much of what I just shared with you. So I felt a little validated, but also, he left with the idea of it's just going to take time. It's just going to take time. And and we're all in it together, but it's just going to take time. So we have to remember that, it's a scary term to use, but it's trauma for all of us, what we've gone through in the last year and a half for a number of different reasons. And so we've got to work through that together, and not to sound cliche, but to use kind of that trauma-informed mindset as we approach each other and move forward.
Absolutely. Agreed. Thank you.
Yes. Ms. Liebel, how are you?
Pretty good. How is everybody?
Good.
Yeah.
Coming on. I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see you.
Okay.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Thanks for being on. We just, what we just talked about, Ms. Liebel? We just talked about liminal spaces. Remember how I talked about that at the faculty meeting the other day?
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of left off with this idea that all of us, regardless of what stakeholder role we're playing right now, we're all feeling like that ambiguity of being in that liminal space. We all want to be back to quote unquote normal, but we're just not there yet. So it's kind of manifesting itself in lots of different ways. And as a school, we're trying to work through that. So I thought maybe if you wanted to share some of the different ways that the counseling department is approaching supporting students, that would be awesome.
Absolutely. Well, I think given the sort of where we find ourselves in the world right now in our school, part of our job, I think, as cheerleader for teachers, students, and parents. We found a lot of times we're on the phone. Kids are having a hard time figuring out how to be in community again. And we're really helping them to try to learn that. Sometimes it's a bumpy road. Sometimes it's a little bit smoother. But as we work with teachers, I think that even over the last week, the teachers, I talked with a couple of teachers, I think things are starting to get better. Like the kids seem to be settling in. They seem to be a little bit more calm. They seem to be investing more in being together. So I feel that a sort of calmness a little bit more coming up in the last week. So the way we do help students is that we meet with kids on an individual basis. Kids, we've met to introduce ourselves as counselors to all the students in various ways. So kids can make appointments with us on their own. We can, by the request of a parent, make an appointment with a student and talk with them individually. Or if you feel that your child could benefit from kind of getting a check-in, either a one-time check-in or a check-in more regularly, we're happy to do that to help out. But we do meet with kids individually pretty regularly. We also have support groups that we've started. I think we're doing something like 25 different support groups that we've started. We did a survey for students asking if they'd like to join a support group, and that's so every student in the building took the little quiz, and based on their responses to their quiz and their request to be part of a group or to meet individually, we have met with kids. We meet a lot of times. Meetings a little tricky in person right now with teachers, but we do stay in very close contact with teachers around student needs, and if they are noticing any student who they're concerned about or that might need additional support, we stay in pretty close contact with the teachers on that, and suggest any kind of interventions or supports or just understanding. It's always helpful if parents call and tell us, hey, something's going on in the family, there's an illness in the family, or we're working through some things with our family dog we just lost, or whatever it might be happening in the family. It's always helpful to know, because we want to make sure that the kids feel supported, and that we just kind of maybe give a little bit of an alert to the teachers that the student might need a little extra TLC the time being, or a little extra flexibility right now, and that can really make a difference for everybody, just to understand where people are coming from. Like Danielle was saying, we're all kind of gone through this trauma, and I think that we have to remember that everybody, they bring this person to each moment, but we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes with anybody. And so to have a little bit of information for that around students is helpful, both when we receive it to share it with permission from the student, or when with permission from the parents, we can share it with teachers. So that is always a helpful kind of thing to have. I don't know if there's other things or questions or things I can address specifically. If everybody knows who their counselor is, I think we all sent introductory little emails out in the beginning of the year. If you're not sure who your student's counselor is, please call the school, and we'll make sure that we get you connected with whoever it might be. But we're here for you in any way we can be.
Yes, and in addition to school counselor, we also have 2 social workers on staff as well. One of them is associated with our PATH program, so has specific students to work with, but we also have Mr. Mitchell, who is here as a building social worker and supports all of our students. We work as an administrative team very closely with the counseling office, and we meet every week, and any students that either families express some concern or questions about, or the other way around, if teachers are expressing concerns or questions, we meet and we discuss, and we look at potential interventions, and then share the communication the way it needs to go. So like Ms. Liebel said, if it comes from the parents, then we're sharing out with teachers to make sure students have what they need, and then vice versa. If it's coming from teachers and adults, then we're sending it the other way, so that we can continue to make sure that we're all working together to best support the students.
Mhm. Yeah.
Questions?
Hi, I have a question about the computer use at lunchtime. My children are using their device during lunch and have kind of mentioned that it's everyone else is using, a lot of others, maybe their group of friends are using their devices too. So it's just more comfortable to do that versus going and talking to either their group of friends and trying to get them off the screens, or going up to a group that they might not feel as comfortable with or might not have connected with recently, and go and talk to them face to face. And I'm a little concerned about that, not using that time for interacting with peers, and wondered if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. What grade are your children in?
6 and 8.
Okay, so 6th grade, the students do not have devices for the first 20 minutes of lunch. So lunch is 30 minutes in length, and the first 20 minutes, they are not on their devices for the exact, well, there are a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons is what you talked about, which is the social piece. Right, with that, we are finding that kids are sitting behind their computers and playing games and not interacting with each other. I will also tell you, quite honestly, when students eat lunch while they're on their computer, it takes them a whole lot longer to eat their lunch because they're distracted. What we also find when they're on their computers is that they all want to lean on top of each other because they want to say, oh, look at this, look at this. And then you get 3 or 4 people that are huddled around a computer, which is not good for a number of reasons as well. So taking that into account, we kind of piloted, I think we started 2 weeks ago with the 6th graders, where we said, okay, we'll do a little meet in the middle, 20 minutes of no devices, and then the last 10 minutes you can have your device. So as you can imagine, there are some students who are not happy about that. What I will say, and the adults who are in the cafeteria will say, is we see a whole lot of interacting, a whole lot of socialization happening, and it feels really good to see that. We see kids being kids. And, they're separated right now, but while they're eating, their masks are off. So they actually even get to see each other's faces and full facial expressions as they're interacting with each other. So we felt really good about it. And the 10-minute concession at the end where they can get on their devices, that's their time. Because a couple of kids would say, well, my mom needs to get in touch with me and it's the only time I can talk to my mom, or, my uncle, or this or that. And we said, well, that's what you have 10 minutes for. You can do your texting to talk about, I'm going to pick you up at 3:15 on the Winton roadside or something like that. So that's where we are with 6th grade, and in the hopes of having some sort of iteration of that and scaling it up to 7th and 8th grade as well. We do believe in what you were saying in terms of the socialization. It's an important part of their day. So we want to support that. And we believe that that's part of the middle school experience, right? Now, kids will tell you, I'm social on my phone with my friends on their phone. Yeah, but that's a little different. So
is there any talk? I mean, I know you are all doing great and are probably stretched to the limit on everything. And I guess what a wish would be, I'm not sure how this would be accomplished, would be to help facilitate some conversations, especially for kids who are, they're using their device more for an avoidance of social interaction, and having an adult or somebody there to help prompt those kind of interactions might be helpful. But I know that's probably quite a wish, quite a big.
It is, but it's also not. I will tell you, just having been in 6th grade lunch, over the past couple of weeks, we've had quite a few teachers in there who have said to me, hey, Danielle, are you okay if I take this kid, and this kid? Because I've noticed that they're each sitting by themselves and they're not really interacting with anybody. And I'd like to kind of make a little lunch bunch in my classroom with them. You know, that's certainly voluntary on the teacher's part, but the reason why I bring that up is because there are adults in the room who are noticing, you know, which kids are social in a group, which kids are not socializing at all. And that's one example of how we're kind of handling it informally. I know I see, just because the counselors kind of divide and conquer, but Ms. Hawhe's in 6th grade lunch a lot, and she's walking around and she's talking to kids and connecting them with each other and prompting them to interact with each other. So I guess my answer to you is not formal, like you're not going to find a formal procedure anywhere about that, but that our adults are very cognizant and aware of which kids are not interacting and which kids are, and they're working to address that and help make those connections.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's helpful. I'm not there, and I hear, you know, my children's perspectives on things. And so getting that side of that part of the picture is certainly helpful. And, you know, that's great that teachers have been able to take on that role, or the lunch, the other people that are monitoring lunch, because I'm sure it is above and beyond, you know, what they're paid to do. So thank you. And hopefully my kids will be able to take advantage of that too.
And don't be afraid to reach out to me, to the counselor, to Dr. Malloy, to Ms. Paddock. You know, we can help facilitate that in a number of ways too. So certainly reach out if you have concerns around that.
Okay, I think I will, but this is great. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Any other questions for us? All right, so I would say if there aren't other questions, I just reach out. I'm here. Our staff is here. Reach out via email, give us a call, and you know, we're all just like you are. We're all working harder and faster than ever in these times and doing our best. And we want to be able to make sure that we're working with you. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have a question. All right, have a great weekend. Have a great long break next week too. Everybody's looking forward to it. Take care.
Take
Thanks
care.
for coming.
Bye.